everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today. My name is 𝐨𝐟𝐼R𝐞𝐫. I am a neurospine medical device rep in Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm super excited to have a guest today that's also in Las Vegas, and his name is Doug. Doug, if you would, please introduce yourself.
Of course. Z, thank you so much for having me. My name is Doug Wheeler. I'm currently the Trauma Territory Manager for an organization named PolyNovo out of Australia. I've been in the medical device space for about 5-6 years, in the medical sales space about 8. I was in pharmaceuticals beforehand. Glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Well, it was a pleasure. I remember meeting you. You're like very tall. So did you play sports?
You know, I played some football in college, was on some competitive golf teams, and then I was also a competitive kickboxer throughout college as well. You would think by my height, I might have done something decent in basketball, but that was not the case. I didn't have the coordination for it.
You didn't have, well, I played college basketball. I'm pretty short, but believe it or not, I played Division I college basketball. So.
Okay. Well, yeah. I'll be the gangly one trying to stand in front of you for a SWAT shot.
Sounds good to me. Made you, want to break into medical device sales?
Yeah, I mean, medical sales for quite some time has been considered kind of the top of the proverbial pyramid when it comes to sales. I started off originally out of San Diego. I went to college out of the Bay Area. Originally was going what I thought was into the law enforcement space, but I had a company at the time. I was working for Four Seasons Hotels. Many have heard of it. That saw something in me at a fairly young age on the sales side. So I got into hospitality sales. Again, with the Four Seasons brand was nice to kind of get my start, but essentially going out into local marketplaces and signing large organizations onto hotel room stays at the Four Seasons to large conference packages. From there, I transitioned over to enterprise, which many come to find out that enterprise and a few other companies are a lot of times feeders into the medical sales space. Mm-hmm. So I was a state manager for enterprise, running numerous different facets of operations, from airports to individual locations to exotic car lines as well. And then I got a call from a pharmaceutical company, Allergan Pharmaceuticals, and said, hey, how would you like to kind of take your sales process to the next level? Of course, increase your earnings, take on a little bit more responsibility. And that was my first foray into medical sales. Again, there is a little bit of a defining line between the pharmaceutical sale and the medical device sale. I was in pharma for a couple of years and really came to realize that my passion was more on the device side, being more involved in the OR, being more of a clinical resource in that regard, and really kind of getting my hands in the mud, one might say. A lot of times pharmaceuticals is associated more with the marketing aspect of really branding a drug into the marketplace over a large span, but you're not going to be doing so much in the actual hospital itself.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you. Obviously, would you say you like medical device sales better than pharmaceutical sales?
It's definitely my passion. I've tried quite a few different specialties. When I started off in medical device, something was actually near and dear to my heart. I'm actually a spine deformity surgical patient myself. From when I was a kid, I had what's called a thoracic fusion. So I have my thoracic 4 to my lumbar 2 vertebrae fused together. So that was when I was first making that jump into medical device. That was what I zeroed in on as far as the spine space, and took over a lot of very large opportunities, mostly throughout California. I was working for a large spine company named Globus, running their Los Angeles operations, and then took over the Central Coast as well. But I relocated back to Las Vegas to be a little closer to family, because that was a good move for me. And then again, that last probably 6-8 months, I've made more of a jump into the trauma world. So I get to see really the worst things you could possibly imagine these days, but I get to, again, follow those patients for a long period of time and really see the success over a long period of time. So it's really internally rewarding.
Very nice. That's amazing. That's amazing. What do you say some of the challenges you faced so far, being a medical device rep?
Sure. I believe medical sales, and especially medical device, is growing in popularity every year. People are hearing more and more about it through internal networks, whether or not they're connected with a family member that's in medicine in some facet. You hear about it as a job, but a lot of people don't know how you get there. I will say that I ran into some challenges. A lot of organizations, especially, you got kind of two ways you can start in the business, whether it's working for a large company where you're working exclusively for them in a kind of a W-2 setting, representing one company, or I actually took a different route going into the distributor realm. And I joined on board with an independent distribution team in Los Angeles that was doing about $25 million a year in business as a small team. And that is really, you eat what you kill.
Yeah.
So I guess where I was going back as far as challenges that I faced, when I made the jump to go into medical, I'd already been in the sales space for quite some time. I had a lot of accolades. And by that time, I already had my MBA as well. So, but the problem was I didn't have any clinical training. I could sell a product, I could articulate a product to a surgeon, I could make that connection. But if you were to drop me into an operating room, I probably wouldn't have known what I was doing then, and I wouldn't have been that great of a value. So the challenging portion for me was demonstrating that I was willing to take some sacrifices in whatever, career they had seen on paper to make that jump into medical sales. So it might have even been a year or two of taking a little bit of hidden pay, but seeing the long-term benefits and goals. And to be honest, I was a little bit older, and a lot of companies didn't want to take that chance on me. They thought that I might have learned maybe some. What's that?
I thought you were 21.
No, I'm close, but I think the gray throws me off a little bit.
The gray.
Maybe I need to get in some coloring.
Yeah, no, totally. No, totally. Obviously, if you could explain to the listeners, the difference between being a distributor versus working with an actual medical device company.
Sure. Most people that start off in medical device start working for one company. You might have heard of like a Synthes, a J&J, a Medtronic, a Globus. They have a wide portfolio of products. You're hired directly by that company. You receive a salary and usually a little bit of a lessened commission, because you're going to get a benefits package, you're going to get a salary, you're going to get the support system of, maybe a reimbursement on your car for your gas, and, infrastructure of a company that will help you go out there and sell. There's also another route, which is working as an independent distributor. So that individual essentially contracts with a medical device company as an independent contractor. So you receive little to no company support. Nobody's paying for your gas. Nobody's paying for your car reimbursement. Nobody's paying for lunches or entertainment. You usually would receive a higher commission for any sales that you make, but you're on your own. So again, it's definitely you kill what you eat. And a lot of people really thrive in that world where you have the opportunity to earn more as a distributor. But if you're not working, you're not hustling, you're not building new business, and you're not constantly looking for ways to grow, then you will fail and you'll be out looking for a job with a company.
Yeah, thank you for that. Thank you so much for that. Say that, what makes you a really, really good rep? Obviously you have very good conversation skills and everything, but what would you say, what makes you pretty good?
Sure. When you're talking about medical device sales, especially when you're talking about a lot of the worlds that we work in with trauma surgeons, spine surgeons, neurosurgeons, they are statistically some of the smartest people on the planet. They're going to be top 1% IQs. They're going to have performed the best in their proverbial classes in every single facet along the way. It's not an easy clientele to connect with, to motivate, and to put sales numbers on the board. So vastly different than a B2B world, where a lot of times your volume makes up for the lack of closing on any individual sale. You might talk about some of your large organizations that are saying if you're picking up the phone and generating new sales, you just need to make 200 calls a day, and 20% of those are going to answer and 10% of those are going to get back to you. It's not so much of a volume approach. You have to be very, very strategic. You have to know intimate things about the surgeon that you're targeting, where they work at, what hospital system they work at, where they went to school. Can you create some sort of connection with those individuals? So my strength through numerous, I guess, managers and C-suites has been that ability to create that strategic sale. So before I'm ever going to approach a new piece of business, a new surgeon, let's say a new trauma orthopedic surgeon, before I've even spoken to them, I already know where they're doing cases at, where they're performing surgery, where they typically got their medical school degree from, where they went to fellowship. Do I potentially know somebody I've worked with in the past that went to school with them? Have I ever lived in a city or know something about the city that person did a fellowship in? Some way to make a connection. Now, again, I guess the icing on the cake there would be that my ability to analyze the motivations of any one call point and being dynamic in that conversation. Of course, trying a couple different ways to resonate, but being dynamic and saying, hey, well, that didn't motivate that individual. Let me look for 3 other ways over here.
Yeah.
Second for that is persistence over a long period of time. And I don't want to say corny phrases like it's a marathon, not a sprint, but surviving in this industry in a marketplace over a long period of time. It's amazing how your phone just starts ringing and people have heard of you, heard about the clinical value that you present, and now they want to do business with you.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, good. I've always, noticed you a little bit in the hallways, and I'm like, wow, you're pretty good. Just watching you demonstrate your products and just, demonstrate yourself and how you present yourself. I think it's great. So I would think, anyone out there listening, he's definitely the ideal medical device rep, just from the entire professionalism.
Well, thank you.
Go out.
Bless you, baby.
So no, I like to give credit, where credit's due. What's your favorite thing about being a rep?
That's an excellent question. I could go down a laundry list of things, but I think ultimately boils down to autonomy. I'd like to think over, well over a decade in numerous different facets of sales that I don't need a babysitter. I'm a big boy, and I've been hired by a organization to grow their sales numbers. I know what the goal is. I don't need somebody that's checking in on me every day, asking me which individual surgeons I'm interacting with, where I'm at in that conversation. I'm brought on board by a company with a goal in mind. We put pen to paper from the very start, establish a goal, stretch goals, all those things. You know what the goal is in front of you. And from that, I have the opportunity to, the success is on my shoulders. I don't have a shift that I work. I don't work, 7 to 4, Monday through Friday, although I'm just about always working. But I appreciate the hustle. So I can really tailor my personal life and obligations around the job and have that flexibility with the trust from an organization that I'm going to perform over a long period of time. So again, there's very few industries that provide you this autonomy that is associated with trust.
Yeah. Absolutely. I totally agree. You're doing your job. Typically, you don't have anyone calling you or bugging you like, hey, what's going on? Just be very responsible and you know what you're supposed to do every day, so it's exciting to have that freedom to really do whatever you want daily. So I like that. That's my favorite thing.
Always be growing. Always be growing.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Advice do you have for future reps out there?
Advice. I think that's a good one these days, again, because over the last couple of years, I've seen a huge migration with individuals wanting to get into medical sales and a lot of times software sales. There's an association, again, rumors that maybe you can just kind of fall into it and you're going to make huge amounts of money and you just have to be at the right place at the right time. Kind of want to dispel that because, again, good things don't come easy. It takes a long period of time of showing that you can perform in a lot of different sectors. Whether or not that be that individual that was in that B2B world, like I mentioned before, your enterprise, your RICOs, your copier sales, things like that, that have gone against their peers on a matrix type schedule and really outperformed and shown their meat. It's not something easy to get into, and it's especially in the competitive world of today. It might take 200-300 applications to get yourself noticed, and you really can't get discouraged. There's a lot of great people out there. There's more people going to college every day and getting specialized training. So the most important thing is staying persistent with your goal. You know, you're getting up numerous days per week to check out listings on numerous different platforms. You're reaching out to individuals within industry to create a connection with and potentially maybe earn a referral from. You're connecting with individuals within your network, maybe in hospital systems. Maybe a friend of a family knows a surgeon in one hospital. Ask them about companies that they might be coming into contact with, and keeping up the pace over a long period of time and not getting discouraged. You might, again, be doing dozens and dozens of face-to-face interviews that might be going 5, 6, 7 interviews deep. You have to stay with it. You have to stay persistent, because once you get that role and that opportunity, you're going to love where you are. Just stick with it. And it's not going to be easy.
That's amazing. Very true. Very true. So I know that you work in the OR. You know, if you would just explain to us exactly what you're looking at and what you're doing in the OR.
Yeah, that's, you know, especially, in the last year, 18 months, again, I started working more in the trauma world. So I'm working in level 1 and level 2 trauma centers typically, which are, how you describe that is they have the most amount of facilities, equipment, and specialized staff that's going to handle the worst of the worst, whether or not a big focus of mine recently has been large body burns. So people that unfortunately catch themselves on fire a lot of different ways, whether or not that's an outside source, whether or not that's self-immolation, a lot of different things, all the way to orthopedic deglovings, where somebody might get hit by a car and you actually have the skin that kind of comes right off of you, and all the way to some pretty horrific infections. Yeah. And the operating room is a truly unique environment. You have to have a lot of emotional intelligence to know when surgeons and staff members are going through really stressful times, whether or not that's your time to step away or whether or not your time to insert yourself, being hyper focused on what's going on during the surgery. Because a mentor of mine always had said that the best case ever was one that you might be sitting there for hours and hours on end. You've said nothing, but at the end of the case, you're mentally exhausted because you've been focusing on so many small things that are going on between the exchange of different staff members to find your opportunity to provide value, whether or not it's, you know, a piece of disposable equipment that you can help with getting off the shelf, whether or not that's giving some last minute advice to a surgeon that's putting on your product for a very new time. Maybe they're doing it, they've run into a case that they've never seen before and they're looking for your advice. You have to be, again, very emotionally intelligent to know when you're going to chime in, what you're going to say, and whether or not you're even the appropriate person to make that statement, and whether or not you need to find somebody else that's got higher levels of training that can give better advice. But you are the ultimate facilitator. Yeah.
How do you handle, you know, dealing with what you're seeing in the OR? Is it hard for you to look at it? Is it exciting, interesting to look at? What is your viewpoint of being able to be, close to something like that?
Every day is a new adventure. Just about every case that I'm in is something I've never seen before. And it's nice to be with that team that is, even though surgeons, this is something they've never seen before in this specific patient and this specific application. When you're running into things that you've never seen before, you have the opportunity to kind of pace yourself. There's a lot of things going on to potentially distract you with, or even maybe freak you out a little bit. But the importance of realizing that you're there for a very specific goal, that ultimately the patient's outcome, and everybody else in that room is there for that very same purpose. We all are seeing things that are difficult to see. So being professional, taking a few minutes to breathe, maybe even adjusting your eyesight, but coming back into it, finding a way to make that experience uber professional and uber goal-oriented for that patient's outcome.
Got it. How clinical do you think you need to be in the OR?
You need to find a healthy mix, especially being in medical device. You are in a position to where you're consulting a surgeon in the outcome of a patient that's on the table. So you need to take that seriously. And most oftentimes, we're one of the only people in the room that doesn't have technical medical training. It's all been done on the job with our individual training departments. You need to know your specific product and products that compete against it better than that surgeon knows themselves. They have to, of course, know information about, anatomy, reading different charting, different status changes throughout the case. But when it comes to technology and what's being used in the case, you need to know everything about what you're representing and everything anywhere even related to it. But there's also going to be a point where you have surgeons that are in the heat of battle, that they're asking you things that are potentially off-label, ways that they're going to use the product that aren't suggested by the manufacturer, a lot of things like that. And you also need to be cognizant and emotionally intelligent to realize, hey, I'm not a medically trained individual. I've extended the amount of knowledge that I know about this product. We need an expert on there. So again, you become that facilitator. And you play that interesting role between your company, between the hospital, between the circulating nurses, between the follow-up floors, of being that educated facilitator, but you aren't a doctor typically.
Yeah, definitely. That's a great point. I think you definitely explained that perfectly. When you're needing to introduce new products to the doctor, after you've seen a certain procedure, how do you go about that?
It's got to be again, going back to strategy. You have to say you've just seen a case and you see a potential opportunity to use your product in a follow-ups with something like that. You have to get an emotional charge and emotional feel from that surgeon, how they like to be interacted with, whether or not it's on a clinical space, where they like to hear only about the clinical aspects of the product, about how it's used, and they don't really want to be friends. And that happens all the time. You have some that, like, again, you're in the heat of battle with them. They like somebody that they can get along with over a long period of time, and they know that they're there to support. And then you have individuals that just like to be involved with industry. You've got your whole kind of gambit of people. But again, getting an emotional feel from that surgeon saying, hey, that was a really difficult case. They got really frustrated by it. Maybe I shouldn't bring up a better way to do it within 5 or 10 minutes. I'll give them a few days to process what happened during that case, realize a couple different ways they might have been able to do it better, and then provide a couple of suggestions. On the other end, you have to, again, be cognizant where you are in, let's say, a trauma case, and there's a lot of different residents moving around, attending surgeons, and there's a lot of confusion going on. That's your opportunity to bring up something right then, right there. I don't know how to fix this patient. Hey, doctor, there's 3 clinical studies that apply directly to this when using our product. If you want, you could take a quick look at them over the course of 60 seconds. Obviously you want them to take a little bit longer, but here's a great application, a large clinical trial to use and fix this situation. So again, there's no magic sauce, there's no magic bullet. It's feeling your environment and inserting yourself when appropriate. And sometimes you're going to hit that out of the park, and you're going to find a surgeon that looks you in the eye and say, thank you so much for bringing that up at the right time and place. And sometimes you're going to realize that you brought it up at the wrong time, and you might have a surgeon that says some not too nice things to you, or potentially kicks you out of their OR for the day.
Yeah.
It's part of the job. It's part of the job.
Right. It's part of the job. Hopefully that never happens. I've never had that happen, but usually my product is very simple. So it's like, they'll probably yell at me if I don't explain little things, but I totally agree, making sure you say the right things at the right time, because it can definitely hurt you or help you. What are your thoughts on Medical Sales College?
I'm a graduate. I went to Medical Sales College in 2017. Yeah. I did their on-site spine program. I guess I would kind of equate back to some challenges that I had in the industry. Again, I kind of mentioned that I had a lot of sales background, but I didn't have the clinical training. So I went in my own pocket and believed in the value of Medical Sales College and got that clinical training. And to be honest, after going through their program, I felt confident enough to cover a pretty difficult spine case, which spine is often equated with having the most amount of intricacies, the most amount of moving parts, the most amount of equipment that you have to know nuances of. So I felt pretty confident about coming out and being able to cover a case. Yeah. Did I know how to make relationships with surgeons at that point? Did I know How to work the nuances within hospitals? Probably not. That was more in-house training. And again, my biggest takeaway, I think, that made me even more well prepared compared to most reps that had not gone to medical sales college is a growing area called biologics. It's very confusing. It can equate to a lot of different things that go into medicine, and there's a lot of different products that are encompassing that space, and they're very scientific. Very few reps that have not worked a long time in biologics have the ability to be able to articulate it. Coming out of there, we had spent a significant amount of time where I immediately started selling biologics as I came out. I think they've got a great program, but one thing I will say about them is don't think that by graduating out of medical sales college that the next day somebody's going to give you a call to offer you hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars per year. It's not going to happen. You're going to be able to get a job in the industry, cut your teeth, and you're still going to have to grow your business. It's not a magic bullet.
It's not a magic bullet, yeah. But you would definitely say it definitely helped you get a job, correct?
When you're talking about a field that is ever so popular these days and everybody wants to get into it, you need an extra feather in the cap, as one might say. So if you can put it on the resume and it becomes a talking point with a potential hiring manager, and you can connect with what you learned at medical sales college to what that individual company is selling and connect those dots, then you're gonna be able to make some of it. If you can't connect what you learned and how it affects industry, it's gonna be a waste of your money.
Yeah, I totally agree. A lot of people I coach, they come from medical sales college, and I help them, with the preparation of getting the job. They already have the skills, but usually they don't know how to interview properly yet or write a correct resume. So I typically help them with that transition of once they leave medical sales college. I coach them on how to land the job using the skill sets they've learned. So I think it's exciting, and I will say that it's definitely a competitive edge, and and also just being prepared, having the resume, cover letter, brag books, just anything that shows your
brag book.
Yeah. Thick brag book, correct. As a sales representative, you definitely want to keep track of all your accolades, because you're going to one day need to showcase that, and you definitely want to make sure that it's there. So just collect it over the years into one big book, and when it's time to present it, there you go. So
you couldn't think of an industry that is more numbers related. You could go in an interview and you can say anything you want about how great you are, about all the things you've done. But if you can't document that on paper in numbers fashion to show how you compared against everybody else who was doing what you were doing, most sales managers don't care.
Thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate you sharing all of this information. I think this is very valuable, and I think it can help a lot of people out there that are very interested in medical device sales. So thank you.
I can't thank you enough for having me. It was truly a pleasure. Look forward to joining you for a follow-up segment.
Absolutely. And now that we've had this conversation, I have so many great questions I'm ready to ask you. So
I'm ready.
Prepare for that. I think this will be great. Thank you.